Good evening from PLuGHiTz Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
And I'm Alante.
And I'm Abram.
And we are here with episode 470 of F5 Live Refreshing Technology for June 25th, 2017. This is our 10-year anniversary show, so it'll be a little different. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, we look back on the last 10 years of F5 Live Refreshing Technology, PLuGHiTz Live Radio, as it was previously known, and the times we have all had together. Wherever you are and however you're joining us this evening, which has a whole new list of things, whether it be Facebook, iTunes, the Podcast Play app in the Windows Store right now, on, what's it called? Google Play Music Podcasts for Android, the myriad of other podcatchers, our home on live stream or Stitcher, or, ready for this list? Mixer.com, Periscope, or YouTube Live, or of course on our apps, PLuGHiTZLive.com/apps, available for the Windows devices in your life, and more coming in the very near future. Thank you for making us a part of your day. This here, like I said, is F5 Live Refreshing Technology, the flagship show on the PLuGHiTz Live family of content. We are live every Sunday night at about 9 p.m. Eastern for about an hour. And normally, we talk about the news of the week, gadgets, gaming, internet media, that type of thing. We will discuss it no matter who is in the room. Obviously, this week, we're a little different.
Not today.
Normally, Abram and I discuss the news of the week. This week is going to be a little different because in addition to having Alante here in the studio again, we're not going to be talking the news of the week. Instead, we're going to be talking about the last 10 years of the show because 2 weeks ago was our 10-year anniversary. We'll get into that stuff in just a little bit. Before that, Abram, how have you been the last couple weeks? It's always weird to not talk to you for a few weeks.
I know. How have you been?
It's been a crazy couple of weeks for us. But, doing better than I could be, so that's good.
That's good. Yeah, well, things here are not too bad. Not too bad. We had a nice Father's Day. Had some nice time with my son. We haven't gotten to put together all the Arduino stuff that I got, but I did take your advice and go to Radio Shack and buy a whole bunch of things from the parts store.
Right before the last ones went away, I guess?
They're still open here. There's like one I was at yesterday. It was closing on Tuesday. Mind you, they're out of like most of the good stuff even in the parts store. Like I couldn't get a project box or anything like we discussed, but I did get like a bunch of lights and switches and things. So, it was, what I really need is more time to do stuff. But it's been cool. Gone to a couple of cool things like the Novo event this week. Ooh. So neat stuff.
Is that where they showed off the idea of the bendy laptop?
Yes. And it's very much an idea because, I asked right after that I had an interview with David Hill, who is the lead designer for Lenovo. Okay. Actually, I think he's the lead designer for ThinkPad. I don't know if he is involved with IdeaPad and other Lenovo stuff. But anyway, so I asked him about that. I was like, what can you tell me about that concept? And he was like, yeah, it's a concept.
That's great.
Mind you notice that was a rendering, right? So it was not, they might be thinking about it, but I don't think they've actually built a prototype or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas what is more real is that they announced and are working on are going to come out in October with the 25th anniversary ThinkPad, which could be cool. What they won't share a lot of details about that. So
understood.
So we'll see. But I'll be looking forward to learning more about that closer to the time it comes out. So that was fun. But lots of stuff coming coming out. Lots of new things. Obviously, it was an Apple event not long ago.
Right.
I know we're all excited about that.
Oh, indeed. So some of our viewers might be, but I know the three of us are all like, meh.
Crickets.
Well, that's how we met, right?
Yes, indeed. I was going to say, one of the things that we teased a couple of weeks ago was that we were going to talk about how we initially met. What was it, 2011?
Well, no, it was earlier than that, I think. I'm pretty sure it was earlier than 2011.
It would have had to have been 2010 at the earliest. That was our first CES as a group.
Okay, that might be it.
So 2010 or 2011. I think it was our first one. So it must have been 2010. I absolutely love this story. Do you want to tell it, or do you want me to?
No, you tell it.
Okay.
Tell it, because I'm old, my memory's failing.
So it was our first CES. We didn't quite know what we were doing. The team was just three of us, me being the only one left. And because obviously the cast has changed a lot over the years. We'll talk about that
drastically.
But so the three of us were at Press Day, and it was at the Venetian back then, and we had gone between events. We had gone to the food court to get something to eat, and the three of us sat down, and then we're eating and talking and whatever, and Avram comes over, and he asks John, hey, do you mind if I sit here? And John's like, no, of course not. Oh, great. And so Avram sits down, and he pulls out not a MacBook, which if you've ever been to one of these press events, not a MacBook is statistically insignificant. It is unbelievable how many glowing Macs you see at press events.
It is a little disturbing.
So we were really excited to see not a MacBook. And so John says that to Avram, and the two of them start talking, and here we are many years later doing the 10-year anniversary show together.
I was just really impressed with you guys' outfits. I was like, these guys are really, must be some really together group that they have like these matching uniforms.
Little did you know.
One of my great enjoyment, the thing I enjoy the most actually about going to events, is meeting other journalists. That's like my favorite thing whenever I go to events, because I figure these are probably people who, whose work that I may be reading or listening to, and any of them could be my next boss or something. So
sure.
So I really like to, and I really like to meet my colleagues. I make it a big point whenever I'm in the press room or whatever, if I get a chance to go and be a more gregarious person than I am 90% of the time. And so, I was psyched. That was only I think my second CES that I went to. So, because I think 2009 was the first one that I went to.
Okay.
2008 I was working at Laptop and Tom's Guide, but I had just started the month before, so I didn't go to that one.
Got it.
But yeah, I was like, man, these guys are really together. They have their own podcast. That's awesome. I was honored to trade business cards with you guys, and I was honored when you invited me to guest on your show, and I'm still honored to be guesting on your show 7-8 years later.
I don't think it can be called guesting this long, can
no,
it?
I know. No, okay. I'm honored to not be guesting on your I'm still honored to be appearing on your show, after all this time. So it's an honor for me every time.
Well, we are definitely glad to have you.
Yeah, man.
So it's and it's always cool when we can get together, and so I'm as psyched about it, more psyched about now than I was then, but it's been really cool, knowing you guys through all this. So it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm glad to be on to talk about the the 10 years, and it's been it seemed like only the other day to me. But
I know. Goes by. When I realized about 4 months ago, when you and I were trying to figure out what a longevity plan was going to look like, because obviously things have changed over the years, and Avram did not used to be the co-host of this show. He only had the Pilch Point, and so some things changed about a year ago, and you and I were talking, what do we do? What does this look like going forward? And I looked, and I'm like, oh my God, it's 2017. The 10 years is coming up. Whoa, it does not seem like I've been doing this for 10 years.
Time really flies. I mean, this is coming up on 10 years at my job. At working at Laptop Mag and now Tom's Guide is coming up on 10 years of my job. So November. So, wow. That makes it the longest job that I've had. But the best, because not only do I get to, play with toys and then write about it,
right?
But more importantly, I get to meet some really cool folks, and the friends that I made through this job are more important than any of the gadgets that I got to play with.
Yeah, for sure. We have met some fascinating people over the years. Obviously, you and Cherie, who have both become really close. We love hanging out anytime we get the opportunity. One of my favorite memories is actually of Cherie when we were at E3 a couple of years ago. And God, it must have been after the Sony press conference. We didn't have anything to do, so we just drove down to the pier.
Cherie is always up for hanging out and doing stuff.
For sure.
I'm always worried about, is the boss gonna mail me about what stories I put up? But Cherie is always up for she always can have time to. She always makes the most of all these events. I'm kind of envious of her. She always finds a way of doing something cool. Now, what you have to do for the 11th year is you have to come to Computex.
So it's on my whiteboard. It's one of the things that we want to add to 2011. What's next year? 2018.
I was about to say we're traveling back.
You got that's because it's that's really cool, and I think you guys would have a blast.
Oh yeah. based on what we've gotten to see from you over the last couple of years, I have no doubt that we'd enjoy it.
Where's that one held again?
That one is in Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
Taiwan. I would love to do that.
Yeah, it's the main thing you would be disappointed perhaps is that there's so many Western stores there and things that might forget where you were for a while, because it's just Starbucks, McDonald's, 7-Eleven. But it's a really cool place. But every now and again I'm like, oh man, do they have to have so many American stores? kind of feels a little bit less like a trip. But the 15-hour trip will make you remember it was a trip.
Oh yeah, I would imagine so. That's the overwhelming bit for me right now, is knowing how far it is, and it's for us to be able to do our thing, how much would have to come with.
Just the simple nod.
But we have to figure out how to do that for Web Summit, if we can pull that off at the end of the year. Anyway, because that's in Lisbon. So that's gonna be a big one. It's been interesting. That's one of the things that over the last 10 years has been fun, is growing the events that we go to, right? When we started, we did little local events, MegaCon in Orlando, MetroCon in Tampa, little things like that. And then one year we're just like, all right, that's it, CES this year,
done.
and it was it was a challenge that obviously has paid off hugely for lots of reasons. Anybody who has watched the show for a long time recognizes that Monster has been a sponsor of ours for a very long time. Alante and I are both wearing Monster headphones. There's a Monster blaster right in front of us here that has saved our bacon at least once. Anyway, so we met Monster at that first CES. It was one of the few things that actually happened at that. No, it was the second CES because it was the one you were at.
I was there.
It was our second CES. And the people from Monster have been so good to us and the people that we work with. We were, if you were watching the pre-show, like people on Periscope when we were doing the tech testing earlier, 2 weeks ago we were off. Obviously last week we were off because it was Father's Day. The week before we were off because Alante and I were at an event in Orlando, the launch of a nonprofit organization for a friend of mine who died at Pulse last year. And Monster helped sponsor the event.
Yeah.
Because they knew that somebody, part of their group, had been personally affected. So Monster helped sponsor the event, which was really cool. And that's a CES. Like, just somebody we met at CES almost accidentally, and now here they are. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know that affected you. Let us help.
I would just like to interject a little bit, to go a little more into that, because I remember when, it was time to set up to meet Knoll and to talk to him for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And it was, me, I'm quaking in my boots, because I'm like, man, I'm about to talk to this big shot. We're about to talk to this big shot. Like, how do we, how do we need to present ourselves? Like, and then he comes out, he's like, hey, what's going on, guys? Oh yeah, you're so cool. Blah. Like, he's just the most down to earth. He's more down to earth than some people I grew up with. I mean, that's insane. So it was, he's someone that even though he's the CEO of a giant company and they're doing tremendous things, he'll disarm you really fast.
Yeah.
In a good way, of course.
Yeah.
He'll shut those defenses down where you're like, I need to be.
Right.
Whereas in other.
Plus, a guy rolling up on a Segway is a little disarming to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also a little confusing if you don't know what's going on. So
exactly.
That's even better.
Exactly. That's true. And I mean, we've met a lot of big shots, between Ludacris.
Still one of your favorites.
Absolutely. I mean, I not to go off too much, but I mean, I grew up in the hood, and in the hood, you listen to these guys. And then, I go to CES 10, 15 years later, and I meet this guy who's actually pretty short. Anyway, he and I are the same height. I'm 5'7", and it was very surprising to see that he was, but you talk to him, and you kind of expect him to, you kind of expect him to have that rapper mentality, Yeah.
But,
and
he's a
manner
total
of speech.
business guy.
He's, talk about, I was disarmed in the wrong way. It was, wow. He's whoa.
Well, how do you think he pays for all of those people in the different area codes?
Thank you, Avram.
I'm just gonna say all those people in different area codes.
Yeah, I got it. We're with you, buddy.
I'm done. I'm leaving the show. That was great. That was
totally unexpected in a wonderful way, Avram. Thank you for that. I would like to point out that on Periscope, you just got some hearts for that. That seemed to be some hearts for that joke, so good job.
But he was an amazing person to talk to, And the same thing with
and And he lent you his personal headphones for the interview because the ones that they were going to let you wear disappeared.
Yeah. And so I got to wear...
By that, I mean, Alante was wearing a black polo shirt, and they handed him black headphones, and nobody would have had any idea he was wearing them.
By the way, my hair was bigger than
it is right now.
So the black headphones just kind of sunk into my hair, and it wasn't a good look. And they wanted to show off the products. So like, let's grab these gold PLuGHiTz headphones.
And they were his personal ones from the other room. That was awesome.
So it was...
You should never clean your ears again.
Way ahead of you.
A piece of his earwax fell into your ear, and you should just let it stay.
I need to let it cultivate. Let it take over me.
That was quite a word.
But I mean, there was
before we continue. I want to say real quick. Anybody who's watching in any of the many different platforms we're on tonight, Periscope, Livestream, Mixer, feel free to throw in some of your favorite things from the last 10 years. We definitely, obviously, if you're on Periscope, it's going to disappear pretty quick, and I think they have to be pretty short. But on Livestream or Mixer, they show up and stay. So if you have some interesting things from the last 10 years, definitely throw them out too. We want not just our stories and stuff, but yours as well.
Absolutely.
Continue along.
But there were more people, like, meeting Swiss Beats was an equally as great an experience as it was meeting Ludacris, because he's also a very talented businessman.
You got to spend a lot more time with Swizz too.
A whole lot. That man.
You guys get some really good interviews. I think the biggest celebrity I ever interviewed was Florence Henderson.
Nice.
I would be excited about that one.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah, but that's like the only one.
Okay, I understand.
I gotta say the probably the most memorable thing was crashing Javier Colon's party.
We didn't quite crash it. We did physically have an invitation.
We crashed it.
We did. We were invited by somebody who did not have the authority to invite us.
Exactly.
But we did have physical invitations.
It was a a proper improper invitation.
Right. We didn't know what we had gotten ourselves into. You and I were working together that day on the show floor, and Nick and John were working together, and they come to us at the end of the day. They're like, "Hey, so we've been invited to this thing. We don't quite know where it is. We just know that it's at the Paris Hotel, and we have this invitation. And the DJ at the Monster booth, we haven't met Monster yet. This is how we met them. The DJ at the Monster booth gave us these invitations and said, you should come join tonight." We're like, all right, sounds like fun. So we follow the instructions on how to get to this thing, and there's a floor number and a room number, and we're trying. We get to the elevator and we jump in the elevator, and it doesn't go to this floor.
Yeah.
Well, that's
inconvenient.
So we go looking for somebody from the hotel, and they're like, "Oh yeah, those are the penthouses. You have to go to this elevator back around the hidden back that way." Like, oh, we're going to a Las Vegas penthouse
in the Paris hotel,
okay.
Right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Like, all right. Well, that's a thing. It's our second CES. We've done no other big events at this point. We're like, oh, okay, sure. So we get up, and we're like, all right. So the hallway's really dark. This is weird, and there's music.
Yep.
The whole place is really quiet, except for this really loud music coming from way down that hallway.
From like big fancy double doors.
So we go trekking down the hallway, and there's a Monster sign, and there's a girl standing out front, and Nick, is that somebody you know? Uh-oh. Okay. So, like, you know Nick, he just walked up confidently like he's supposed to be there, and he hands her the thing, and she's like, yeah, sure, come on in. And in we go, and then open bar, and there's food. There's all this like a whole sushi bar in the back. And then they're like, okay, music time. And then Javier Colon, who won the first season of The Voice, performs. And then
amazing performance, by the way.
A great performance. And then a group named Scarlett, from LA performed. And then a woman Sophia.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
I'm friends with her cousin on Facebook.
Nice.
So anyway, she performs. She's like the granddaughter of like I don't remember who, but he was like a big blues guy from Louisiana in the like the early days of blues.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to make a name for herself. She actually auditioned for The Voice this past season.
Nice.
Anyway, so they performed, and it was all very, very cool. And then music stops, and people start mingling again. And Nick is off talking to this guy, who obviously we didn't know, because we didn't know anybody in the room, except the DJ, who Nick never did find. And so, eventually the guy just stops. He goes, okay, I have to ask, who the hell are you guys? And Nick gets into panic mode.
Yeah.
He's like, what? What do you mean? As well, there's maybe 100 people in here, and there's like 8 that I don't know by name, and you guys are 4 of them. No, you're not in any kind of trouble. I don't care. I'm glad you're here. You're fun to talk to. But who are you?
And didn't he say, and you have cameras or something like that? Yeah.
So Nick introduced himself and us, and he's like, oh, cool, that's great. And then they just went back to their conversation. And that was how we met Monster.
I thought,
who the hell are you guys?
I thought I was going to get booted out of the window, like in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fashion. You know.
So that was fun.
And then small note. I've got to make the small note of we were in. I was walking around, kind of looking at the scenery. You know, I'm like, wow, this is the Paris Hotel, and everything's all golden and beautiful and kind of colonial looking. And then I walk into one of the side rooms, and I look at this table, and I'm like,
this pissed you off. I've never seen you as frustrated
as
you were at this.
Wait till you hear this. I mean, I'm an artist, all right? And if any artists are watching right now, you may understand as well. Understand. But I look at this table, and I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. Because this table had, like, Anubises, or I should say Anubici.
That's the plural. Huh?
That's the plural.
Like surfi is the plural of surface.
So Anubici are all over this thing. And there's like Egyptian hieroglyphics all over the table.
And then as you left the room, you started to notice that it was everywhere.
Everywhere.
The entire room in the Paris hotel was Egyptian themed.
But like it was completely out of place. Everything else was colonial. Except for these couple of pieces that were in this room.
Like this big table, and there was a smaller end, the 2 end tables in the main living room were that way. It was so bizarre.
And so I proceeded to point it out to everybody because it bothered the crap out of me.
Yeah, he was pretty upset about that.
I think
they must have gotten it on like a remainder sale from the Luxor.
But it's the Paris Hotel, and we were in a penthouse suite. Come on.
Yeah, you were probably the first person to ever notice it.
Probably. I should complain.
So, Avro, obviously we're not the only ones to have interesting event stories. You've got to have one.
I think all the events are. We've had a lot of interesting events over the years for sure. I mean, getting invited to events that were a little bit more like, not like big events like that, but like a press event. I still remember a few years ago getting invited to like this press event when they were about to launch the Microsoft Surface, the first Surface. To visit Microsoft's campus. That was pretty interesting. They wouldn't let us take any pictures, even of stuff that like was not worth taking a picture of. It was, that was pretty interesting.
You were so excited when you came back, and you were so frustrated that you couldn't tell us anything.
I thought it was interesting to get to see the Sanctum Sanctorum or whatever of Microsoft. I I always really like, and I didn't get to really see there, like to see what kind of computers companies give their employees. Like like Intel, for example, at least last I checked, gives all their employees ThinkPads.
Okay.
That's their official company notebook, or at least it was last I saw a couple of years ago. And was funny. One time I actually went to visit an Intel office in, I think it was in Austin, I think, and they had and like that day I think they had some kind of problem because a Windows XP update didn't work or something. And I thought it was kind of funny because that year, it was like 2 years after Windows 7 came out. So it was like, wait a second, you're supposed to be Wintel, but you're still using Windows XP on your office computers or something. So
that's funny.
That was kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, the world trips that I've taken been kind of cool, but at the same time, they're actually like not a vacation at all. I mean, going to Taiwan, which I've done now 7 or 8 times, has been great. Went to Barcelona a bunch of times. Yeah. The most interesting time I ever had going to Barcelona was the first year that I went. We don't accept this anymore because really, if one can afford to, you don't want to. But we used to, back before we were owned by our current parent company, accept travel. So like, if a company wanted to sponsor us to go, we would say, okay, sure. So like Samsung took a bunch of journalists over and they paid for our hotel and airfare. Now we, since then we always pay for our own. But anyway, because they had some kind of a policy that when they send people over a certain number of hours, they have to be put in business class. So that was the only time I've ever gotten to like see how the other half lives. I got to fly on British Airways. What's it called? Like upper class or something.
Okay.
And where the seat becomes the bed.
Ah, yes.
And like no one's really sitting next to you because there's like a wall between you and the other person who's sort of across from you. Which is good because the wall was kind of like a sneeze guard because the guy sitting across from me kept sneezing. I was like, better roll up this wall. But it was that was interesting. I mean, that was a really nice plane, but then the hotel wasn't so nice. So what can you do?
Yeah.
But it's so I've had some interesting trips and events. I haven't been the one who's gotten to do most of the celebrity interviews. That's like my colleague Cherie does a lot of celebrity interviews because she's doing things like audio. Like It seems the celebrities like to associate themselves with headphones and speakers. You don't see a lot of celebrity associating themselves with laptops and phones. But
the guy from Big Bang Theory is the spokesperson for Intel.
Yes, so but he doesn't show up to events to chat with people,
which is disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like it's just commercials, right? Like he's not. But remember, there's also that it used to, I don't know if it's still a thing, but remember for a few years there, it was a thing to try and get celebrities and have them be your creative director, even though they weren't actually really doing anything. So
like BlackBerry.
So the most famous one is has to be BlackBerry with Alicia Keys.
Yep.
Where Alicia Keys was, this is just for the memory of our audience who may not remember the story. So Alicia Keys for a hot minute there, for like a month or two, was appointed the creative director of BlackBerry. I'm really not sure why, because I don't know what. I mean, I guess they're just looking for someone who would do it and who was considered pretty cool at the time. But I'm not really sure what the relationship, like where that was a natural fit for them. So she came and she said something like, they brought her on stage when they were announcing a new phone, and it was supposed to be like, now we're cool, because that was a big problem for BlackBerry. Now they've just given up, but for a while there, they were trying to be cool, right? So So, she came out, she's creative director, and then like a week later, people looked and they saw on Twitter that she was tweeting with her iPhone. Then a whole bunch of people caught her like in a dressing room or something with her iPhone and like basically no Blackberries, and they're just embarrassed. Like if you're gonna take the money and pretend to be an employee of someone to be a spokesperson, the least you could do is carry the phone.
Right.
Go
all in.
Now I don't know, for example, the other one was Ashton Kutcher for a while was creative director of Lenovo, I think.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if he was ever, I don't know how that ever panned out.
But the rest of the group here all went, oh. So
and Will.i.am has been creative director of like 100 different companies.
Yes,
he gets around.
Yeah, and he's currently the celebrity spokesperson for First Robotics.
Right. I mean, I like Will.i.am, but I'm just saying, like he was a spokesperson for Intel for a while, but not just spokesperson. Like it's one thing to say like he's a spokesperson, which is what he probably really was,
right?
But to say that like he's an employee or a partner or like director of something,
yeah,
I think for a while T.I. was director of something for Toshiba.
Oh wow.
Or something.
Oh,
so
no. It was T-Pain.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was T-Pain because there was the commercial with him and the sandwich and the laptop with the waterproof keyboard.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
You know what?
Yes.
So it's funny.
It's amazing how if you're a celebrity, you can become creative director of something without actually
doing anything,
being creative or doing anything. But it's sort of like how you can get an honorary degree, like an honorary PhD or something, without actually going to school. I wonder if you could put that in your resume.
Fun
creative director for a minute, but
fun weird. Like, sorry to cut you off real quick. But before I forget, you said T.I., but in my head I did picture T-Pain, but it didn't correct in my head. It's so weird. I know both people, very well, but so my brain knew.
I think I just discovered that Alante's microphone was not coming to you, Avram.
I can hear him though.
So I've made sure that it is. But you and I got to do the PC build race a couple years ago together at CES.
Yes, actually, that was one of the I did that for a few years, and I was glad that we were able to do it together that time. That was pretty cool. I think they've stopped doing it now, but that was awesome. I loved that. That was, Tiger Direct used to have a charity PC race for charity, and when I was starting to go to CES and I heard that they had this, I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. And I found a way to like weasel my way into it, even though I was from Laptop Mag and not from like Desktop Mag or anything. I managed to, I got in touch with the people and I was like even like right after it happened the first time that I saw it, I was like, hey, can I be in on this next year? And like 3 or 4 times during the year, I was like, hey, have you decided yet when you're doing it? Can I sign up? And then after, so I was really psyched to do it because it was such an honor to be in there with some really great people, people whose work I admired, like the folks at Maximum PC, who I was big fans of for a long time, like Gordon Ong. And so
because they only chose 24, right?
There was like, I don't know, something like 24 people. I don't know that it was like overflowing with people that wanted to do it or something, but it was cool. I really enjoyed it. And, I was happy for you to do it with me too. Now, listen, I never came close to winning. I have to admit it. And it's not because I don't know how to build a PC. What that thing is, it doesn't test your PC knowledge. What they do is they have a computer that's mostly built already. The CPU is in the case, the motherboard is in the case, and then your job is to like put in the SSD, put in the RAM, put in an optical drive, connect the cables inside, close it, boot it, and whoever can do it fastest wins, and then they would donate $10,000 to the charity of their choice, and then all the computers that were built would get donated to something. But what what they're really measuring is how sticky are your hands. Like, can you get the screw in there without dropping it?
Yeah.
If you drop the screw, then you lose. So I was always dropping the screw and having to chase it around the floor. Like, it's not like any real PC build where I've done where the hardest part's actually putting the motherboard in.
Yeah, indeed.
And getting it on the standoffs and getting the CPU on, and then making sure that you get the cooling fan on the CPU with the right amount of paste and all of that stuff. So no, it wasn't. It wasn't like that. The winner would complete the PC build in like 4 minutes, and then they would let the rest of us struggle for like 20-25 minutes while everybody watched and were like, "Are you done yet?" Eventually, like some of the they had tech support people would come by and help you. It was sad, but I enjoyed participating in it just to be there with all the other people. And remember they even had like celebrity hosts a couple of times. Like what's his name? The comedian guy who was in The Usual Suspects was host one year. Trying to remember.
I can't help you.
Anyway, yeah, he was host one year. One of our fellow racers, Justine, is now a semi-famous. Well, I guess she always was a semi-famous podcaster, YouTuber. I've seen her now showing up on like the Celebrity Apprentice and
really,
and on the Food Network for like Chopped or something. Yeah.
Oh man.
But we knew she was famous then because she had an assistant. But it's cool, like meeting. That's why I did it, to meet people, to like hang out and meet my colleagues, and that was my main desire in going to it, and I really enjoyed it. So I think they eventually stopped doing it, but it was a blast. I did it for like 5 years. I still do a show. I got to see if I can get you in on this. A show called The Last Gadget Standing.
Yes.
And that's another one where I got to know some of the people who are involved in it, and they asked me to join, and I just loved it. Like I'm a total whore for doing any type of panel or anything like that. Like any type of like panel, you tell me I'm a judge, like okay, I'll be there free, do my work later. So this was like The Last Gadget Standing. They have it's like Last Comic Standing or one of those things, but for gadgets. And so a bunch of us tech journalists are asked to be judges, and by judges we mean we don't actually decide who wins. We decide before the event happens which 10 companies get to present, and then we sit there, and then they have an applause-o-meter, and the audience decides who wins. But that one is actually hosted by, or has been previously hosted by, the guy from Howard Stern Show, Gary from Howard Stern Show.
Okay.
So I've watched him butcher my name several years in a row. It's Avram Pilic is one of our judges.
Wow.
Okay, Baba Booey, whatever you say.
Man.
But
Avram Pilic.
But that kind of thing, I really enjoy doing at these events. It's always a blast. But I'm curious, 10 years ago, what laptop were you using?
Boy.
What were you using 10 years ago?
The show originated, well, interestingly, it originated on desktop, went to notebooks, and has come back to being run on desktops. We originated on some very basic desktop computers, because obviously, okay, so when we got started, I'm going to tie Justine back in here real quick. So when we got started, so we've always done the show live. And if you go look at the podcast community, you'll find out that we are in the minority. Very few shows do theirs the way that we do. I've just always liked the whole live thing because you only get one shot at it, and somehow when you only have one shot, you don't make the mistakes that you make when you know that you've got a safety net. I can tell you a story of one night that our 60-second intro took an hour and a half to record.
Yep. I've had that issue too because you're trying to be too perfect.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so doing the live show, you don't have that concern, and then you don't have all the editing afterwards. It's been a wonderful thing. When we started audio only because the idea of live streaming video would have been insane.
I think you guys started video not too long after I showed up.
Yeah, the first video we ever did was actually at CES. We started video at CES. So we started audio only, but we still did the show live on a platform called TalkShoe.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Recorded live. Everybody thought that I was the one who did that promo. Mm-hmm. It sounded just like me, but it wasn't. I promise it was not me.
He's lying.
Everybody had that same promo at the beginning of their MP3. Anyway, so... we started on TalkShoe, and it was a really weird setup, but it required very little on our part to be able to do. We had a mixer, not the one that we have now, that just line out into a desktop computer, and then we used Skype to call into the service. That was it. And then we still had the chat room. People could still talk. We had this one super fan, cool guy who was at every show.
Yep.
And he would talk in the chat room for the first 4 minutes, and then we wouldn't hear from him again. It was so bizarre. He followed us over to Ustream when we started doing live video over on Ustream, and then he went away. We never heard from him again. I don't know what happened.
Into the ether.
Yes, into the ether, like Periscope comments. But when we were on TalkShoe, there was an ad that everybody saw all the time for iJustine, because she was using TalkShoe for her show too, and then she stopped, and the ad never went away. I would not be surprised if you went to their website right now and you saw the ad for iJustine. She hasn't used it in 8.5 years, but I would not be surprised if that ad is still there.
I would just like to point out that when you made your disgruntled faces, there were hearts going on in the chat.
You don't necessarily know that they were tied in.
I'm tying them in. Because if it was who I think it was, she probably knows, right?
I don't know.
Okay. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, indeed.
But
yeah, we've used a lot of platforms and a lot of technology over the years. God, when we started doing the video, we had a Microsoft LifeCam. Is that what they call their brand of webcams?
Yes.
And it was 4x3, and it was really bad. And then eventually we upgraded to a Logitech C920, and then to a C930, which I know y'all give the C920 the score over the 930, and I agree. For consumers, the 920 is the right one. But when you got the distance between you and the camera that we have, the 930 has a longer focal range. But anyway, so the 920 definitely, for most people, I agree with Laptop Mag, the C920 is the way to go. But we had a 920, then a 930, and the 930 was officially retired, believe it or not, a month ago.
Yeah.
Wait, so what are we using now?
We have got a Blackmagic. What's it called? Do you remember the name of it, Alonte?
I sure don't.
It is a Blackmagic Decklink Duo 2 Quad. It is a video input and output card specifically for broadcasters. If we use the Live Stream Studio software as our broadcast software for the show, which obviously is a new addition as well in the last year or so. Last October, I think, is when we went to the full version. And if you buy Live Stream's physical hardware, this is the card that's in it. So we've basically been building Livestream's official hardware just on our own here in the studio.
Slowly.
And so we're actually using our... You remember the big Canon camera that we had at CES this year?
I sure do.
Avram?
Yes.
That's what we're using for the live show. So it is a huge change from even where we were a year ago. Michelle just joined the chat on Periscope.
Hey.
She can attest. Over the last 12 months or so, we have had a massive change in technology for what we're doing here in the studio. We can bring 2 HDMIs in, and we can do 2 HDMIs out that are live stream specific. So I can actually put screens on the wall and have your feed come out of the live stream box and onto the wall. Or I can have the preview and the program up on the wall, or all kinds of stuff like that. It's actually kind of cool. All kinds of new capabilities that we did not have in the past.
It was really fun to come back, and because for anybody who's been watching the show for forever,
long time.
Yeah, forever, would have seen me show up about 3 years ago,
At least.
about 3 years ago, and then I went on a hiatus because I did school, and then I tried the living thing, and that didn't work. So here I am. And it was funny to come back and to see how much he's upgraded, since...
How much has changed since you left?
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, even today, I'm still... I don't say it out loud, but I'm like, wow.
Yeah, the room has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even looking around now, I'm like... I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone a little bit.
So what kind of phone were you guys carrying 10 years ago?
Oh, my gosh.
10 years ago, 2007, I would have had a PPC 6600.
How about you, Alante? What were you carrying?
I may have... yes, I did. I had a Motorola Razr.
That's what I was going to say.
That was actually my favorite phone.
Those were good phones.
I dropped that thing outside in the middle of winter in Cleveland, Ohio, and didn't realize it until the next morning. It was still alive.
Yeah.
Alive and well.
That was the logical successor to the Motorola something 60.
StarTAC?
It was the StarTAC and then the something 60. I can't remember what the letter was. And then the Razr was the third generation of that. The StarTAC, we had a store manager when I worked at Radio Shack. We had a store manager who would show off the StarTAC and sell it. Well, what happens if I drop it? He'd go, oh, what happens if you drop it? And he'd pop his off his hip and chuck it at the wall, and it would pop into 5 pieces. He'd click it back together, turn it on, and hand it to him.
Wow.
Those were good phones. That was my first cell phone of any kind was a StarTAC.
Nice.
And I had it for a number of years. Then I had some type of LG flip phone, which I forget, but it was an alleged upgrade because it had a color screen, but who cares? And then I had 10 years ago, but I was still using. I was not on a smartphone yet. I had what's called a Samsung Alias, I think it was. It was a flip phone, but the lid would sort of flip this way, and you have a little keyboard inside for texting.
Yep.
And I had that, and I remember, when I started at laptop, there were, the iPhone had come out a few months before, and everyone was talking about smartphones, and I was like, why do I need my phone to be smart? I don't make that many phone calls anyway.
Oh boy.
And I was like, I don't need my phone to be that smart. I don't make a lot of calls. I don't go out much. I don't get out much. But then, then
it happens.
When we got in the Motorola Droid, the first one, and I borrowed it for a few days, and I showed my wife too, and we were like, we have to have this. And it was just like a simple thing. I was like, oh, I really want to have email when I'm out and the web when I'm out and about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I want to have this. So, which is funny because, I was certainly, it was the first time where I saw something where I was like, yeah, I'm a convert to this. Because before that, I totally, a few years before that, got the concept because I had a Cassiopeia, like a Casio E125, I think it was.
Wow.
That was one of those pocket PCs,
Nice.
and I used to call it like my bathroom computer. I was like, oh yeah, you can you get the little Wi-Fi, CF or whatever, mini compact flash Wi-Fi card, and you could it would weigh a ton, but you could carry it around and be like, yeah, I can look at the web on this pocket Internet Explorer that shows things looking terrible, but but it's color and everything, it was so much better than my Palm Pilot.
Right.
But so yeah, 10 years ago that was my phone, and I did have a laptop, but it wasn't my main computer. I had a Lenovo ThinkPad. I think it was not P50. It was like a 15-inch. It was really heavy, and I didn't really use it that much. I primarily used my home-built desktop. And when I started working at Laptop Mag, and I was seeing all these laptops, I was still not 100% convinced, because again, I was like, well, I'm not really traveling a lot. My desktop is quite powerful. I like that I built it myself. We'll see about this. Then when I started to go to trade shows, and I would be borrowing laptops that we had around the office. For a while, I just kept borrowing the same one. I kept borrowing the X300, the ThinkPad X300, which was a beautiful laptop, so light. When I finally had to give it back, I was like, oh man, I just have to buy one of these, and I did. And that was my laptop for years before I got the one that I have now.
Uh-huh.
So, but
you did have that forever.
I still have it here. My wife wanted, who's still just likes to use her desktop computer for things, wanted a laptop to take upstairs to the attic, and I was like, here, I'll fix it up for you, and I gave it to her. Yeah, okay. I mean, it was really well made. I mean, it had a really low voltage processor, so even when it came out, it wasn't very fast. So, that was the trade-off. But I'm always curious to hear what people were using at the time, because you think about some of the things we were reviewing 10 years ago. The Asus EPC was the new hotness.
Oh my god.
That was the hotness.
Oh my god.
That was the hotness. Netbooks were the hotness.
Oh my goodness.
For 6 months.
Yeah.
It was more like a year and a half. But yeah, netbooks were the hotness. In 2007, they were still on Linux. You get your EPC and it had Linux, and people were like, I don't know if I can use this. And then a few months later, they started to come out with ones on Windows, and people were like, oh, netbooks. And people would buy netbooks and spend $500 on those things.
I know.
And that was considered cheap.
Windows 7 base? Windows 7 Basic? Something like that?
Yes, Basic, yeah.
Basic? I was wrong, by the way. It wasn't a 6600, it was a 6800. And I upgraded to the 6900 during 2007. I was just looking at a timeline.
Yeah, people were using them all the time. That was a big deal. I even used to see some journalists carrying netbooks, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. I believe it.
So, yes, I know 90% of journalists carry carry MacBooks, but in that other 10%, I would say 5% are ThinkPads. 2 or 3% are people who were given HP or Dells from their job and had no, and that's what they're carrying.
I'll tell you, I felt pretty good being the black sheep, and when it came time to come and type things down, post what you saw, whipping out my Samsung Chrome Series 7 versus Apple trees everywhere. I felt pretty great.
Nowadays, though, actually, you see a higher percentage of people with Surface.
Yeah. Yes. I even have one now. That's a big deal.
Surface has taken some of that market share.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean,
there are 4 of them in here right now.
I love going to the press room to see not only who my colleagues are, but what they're using. Like what are you using? I mean, not just like what laptop they're using, but like what camera they're using to photograph things. Yeah. I'll even try and get a chat with them and find out what CMS their company uses. So I'm always fascinated with what are other people using. That was like my number one question for Florence Henderson when I actually did get to interview her.
Nice.
It was like what do you use? And she didn't tell me what make and model of computer she used, but she said she used PCs. So,
boy, what a fun question to ask celebrities. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to start doing that.
That might not be a bad idea.
That would be fun.
I mean, I always had the ambition of one day like compiling this and getting like a slideshow of like celebrities and what do they use, like what phone do they use, what computer do they use. Of course, if it's all iPhone, it'd be boring. But you hope to learn some things. Like I don't know if he has gotten an upgrade, but I know that Donald Trump I think used a Galaxy S3, which is crazy old. Which is a crazy old phone at this point. Like you consider that he could probably afford, an 8 or whatever. But
I think I have an S3 in the other room
that you use just for nothing.
Yeah, it's literally for nothing. Yeah, just a spare.
Yeah. I mean,
I've got an S8 Plus in the other room that I use for nothing.
But that's also a job interview question that I ask people every time.
Interesting.
And I've been doing it since my prior job too, when I worked at About.com. I always ask people. I always want to ask people like, what tech do you use?
That's a cool idea.
Because if I'm interviewing somebody for a technology journalist type of job,
sure.
If they can't give me a detail, I don't care what it is. I want to know if they can answer the question in detail.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Because you would be surprised, or perhaps not, how many people I've interviewed who don't know what they have.
Interesting.
And if you don't know what you have, then how can you possibly? Then you're not a detail-oriented person.
Right.
Like if I ask you like what phone do you have? It's like, oh, I have some kind of iPhone. Wait, so you can't tell me whether it's the 4, the 4S, the 5? So you've been carrying this and you don't know?
Right.
I
don't think we're gonna get along.
Or someone is like, I have a Dell Inspiron.
Oh.
Or it's like, well, which one? I don't know. It has the Windows.
Oh my god.
Well, if it has the Windows, then how are you going to understand the very, so it's I actually once had a guy when I was working at About.com be like, hold on. And he like took it out of his pocket, his phone. And he's like, I don't know what, and he's still like, I don't know what this is. A friend of mine just loaned it to me.
Oh, wow.
What?
So
that's crazy.
So now look, I understand that like if you don't care about technology, you might not remember what you have. Like if you ask my mom, she may not remember that she has a Galaxy S5. She may just remember she has a Samsung phone.
Right. That's what my mom knows. She knows she has a Samsung. She doesn't know it's a GS7.
But she's not interviewing for a job as a technology editor either.
Right.
That's the key message here.
The one of the things that I like to kind of reflect on a little bit, and I'm going to try and keep this story short, but is how my technology has kind of changed and what I've accumulated over the years. Like as a kid, I didn't have any computers. Growing up in poverty, I would kind of wish I had computers, and all I would see in advertisements and stuff is Macintoshes. So, specifically the colorful, clear, see-through ones.
Oh boy, You were quite young. If when you were a kid, you were seeing the see-through one.
Yes. so that's what I grew up with was seeing these $2,000 machines.
And you were their target demo.
Yeah, that I didn't know back then were pieces of crap. Even then when they were new, but then growing up to now let's say 20 years later, where now I have 3 or 4 computers. Several smartphones, active and not active, of tablets, and just like I wouldn't have dreamed that I would have gotten to where I am now.
That you'd be sitting here where we're using a phone just as a soundboard.
Yeah.
It is its only purpose in life.
Well, I always, I was fortunate that I had computers when I was younger, but. I really feel like lucky every day that I get to work in technology journalism because it's what I always wanted to do. And when I say I always wanted to do it, I mean like when I was a kid, I used to pick up Computer Shopper magazine, and then it was like yo thick with ads, and I used to flip through that like it was a Playboy. I would be like,
"Yep,
look at those discs." Holy cow! Look at that monitor. It comes with green letters or yellow.
Oh baby.
That's
so great.
That printer can actually print graphics, not just text. It says it can print 1 page every 5 minutes. So I always used to. For me, it was like what I always wanted to do, and before this job that I have now, I worked as technology editor at a site called About.com, and we didn't get like all the latest and greatest stuff, and primarily I was editing other people's stuff. So when I got to do this and like go to CES and like be on the show or whatever, like for me it's a dream every day, and I'm always really thankful for it, even when things are frustrating. I'm like, yeah, but like I'm doing something that I really, really love to do every day. And so even if I've got to review a notebook that is a piece of garbage, or even if I've got to stay up late doing work, like listen, I think we're very fortunate because a lot of people don't get the chance to get to play with all the cool new stuff, get to go to CES, and I try to keep that in mind when I'm going to these places. Like I'm hoping to be able to share that experience with people who don't get to go. Yeah. Like this is what you would have seen if you were there, because I mean that's really just the pleasure and the of just seeing new and different stuff.
It's true.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I love the idea of getting to do the crazy things that we get to do. Get to review products, like the fact that here in the office we literally have a stack of Bluetooth speakers for review. And that people come to us for our opinion on a product. I was talking to somebody online the other night, and they're like, "Hey, so what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm writing a product review on the Monster Blaster boombox." They're like, "Oh, how is it?" I said, "It's one of my favorite products ever." They're like, "Oh, cool. I think I might get one then." That is so cool. I love. We have caused people to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, there's certainly that.
It used to just be my parents I would cause. I'd be like, listen, you should buy that VCR. But
you should see the statistics that Todd Cochran has on the TPN CES coverage on how much money has been spent based on our coverage.
That's cool. I'm always, and that's why I love user comments, and I love I love feedback, especially the negative feedback, because it means you really touch someone. So like the first, here's a story. So the first review that I ever did for laptop, I reviewed the first laptop review anyway I did for them. I remember reviewing. It was a Lenovo notebook. It was a ThinkPad. I think it was an E series.
Okay.
I thought it was really cool because it had a blinking red light on it, and I was like, like now a lot of things have that, but anyway, they had put a blinking red light in the logo to show you like the sleep state, which they still have now, like 10 years later. But anyway, so I described it in the review as I was like, this thing looks just like Arnold's Terminator eye, and I was right. Nice. So some dude went and logged into the comment system, which we had at that time was really difficult to register to comment on our stuff.
Okay.
You'd end up going to like a broken page and another broken page and having to confirm your email address. You had to really try. So this person registered, and then he just put a little comment. He put like in quotes what I said, looks like a Terminator eye, and he put, Avram, you douchebag. I printed that out and kept it on my desk. I was like, I touched this guy so much he had to go through the registration process just to call me a douchebag.
That is solid.
I feel very special. I really moved him. So
no matter which direction you moved him.
Yes,
Nick has always worn as a badge of honor. I wonder if it's still there. It's got to still be there. On TalkShoe, there was a review of our show. God, I wonder if I could even find us on here now. And the review, it was when there were... God, this website has not changed at all. What? It was when... It was just the three of us. It was me and Nick and John. And somebody commented, and they reviewed Nick... and they reviewed John, and they left me alone. They were mean to the two of them. It's not there anymore. They said that Nick was a pompous ass. And they said... Oh, we got a heart for that one. Thank you, Periscope, for making that fantastic. What? They called Nick a pompous ass and John a wannabe gamer, and they left me alone. But Nick, like, when it first happened, Nick was really offended by it. And then after talking to you, like, he wore that as a badge of honor because it wasn't easy to review a thing on TalkShoe at all. And so for them to have gone to the trouble to review... Still getting hearts on that, I think.
There was a bunch.
There were a bunch.
There was like 15 that came up.
Y'all must have known those two. For this person to have gone to the trouble to register on TalkShoe to review the show, just to say something, even that it was negative, after talking to you, Nick's like, no, you know what? I like that.
Yeah, you see, you moved them. The worst thing you could be is forgotten, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
So if people are reviewing your stuff, if they're commenting, it's all good, even if it's negative comments.
Right.
Sometimes it's been a while since I've done this, but I've written articles where I knew people were going to get offended, and I was kind of looking forward to the feedback. Like when I wrote the "Get an SSD, you putz" article, like that. I knew people would be offended, but I meant it. So, you should get an SSD.
I know someone who would love that statement.
What was
the one that you wrote that Yahoo News picked up that had more comments than I've ever seen? Do you remember?
The one that's negative, or the ones that were negative?
Oh, yeah, people were not happy with your take on whatever the topic was.
I know some people weren't happy on my take with the 1360, complaining about 1366 screens. Oh, don't buy a 15-inch laptop was one. People didn't like. I tell people not to buy it. Sorry.
I wish I could remember which one it was. that you had some people riled up.
I had a lot of people who, but I wouldn't consider this negative feedback. I had a lot of feedback. I think the most traffic I ever got and most feedback I ever got an article, which was on Yahoo and elsewhere, was right after my son was born. And I wrote the article about 15 things he would never use.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
But that was not...
That's one of my favorites.
That was my favorite to write article. I had been working on it since before, like a week or so before my wife was scheduled to go in for her labor induction, because we knew when she was going to go in. So, and then right after he was born, I whipped out the laptop and I published it. And
then you spent the next 3 or 4 days taking pictures to disprove it.
Then I defied it. Yeah, then I defied it. And the funny thing is, I didn't need to take the pictures because it's all, to be honest, to revisit it now, I was I made a lot of assumptions about what he would like. For those not familiar with the article, I listed 15 things that I thought, okay, by the time he gets old enough to use this, no one's going to be using it. So I had and a lot of it's true. It has turned out to be true. Like I said, he wouldn't use a landline telephone. But I kind of thought that he would never use an optical disc, for example.
Right. Wow.
No, he used optical discs all the time.
Uh-huh.
Because
he's got his PlayStation.
He's got a PlayStation. Mm-hmm. He's taking them in. He's taking them out. He's putting them in. He knows how to use optical. He knows how to use DVDs and Blu-rays really well, and he has for a few years. So that was totally wrong. I thought by the time, what I underestimated was how old he would be before he started to use all this stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
He is 2 years old and he's using this stuff. So, and so, yeah, everything that I thought, by the time he used it, it's going to be long gone.
Yeah.
Now, there are some things he's never used a fax machine.
Sure.
And I don't think he ever will.
Sure.
But
real quick, for the many new people who have just joined us on Periscope in the last 60 seconds, we're talking about an article that Avram wrote right before his son was born about technology that he thought would never come into his hands. That he was right on some and not so much on others.
Yeah, I just thought, look, this is a good point of reflection to talk about what people are no longer going to be using really soon. But you'd be surprised at the longevity of technologies, right? Because a year or two later, I wrote another article that I really liked doing, that I keep trying to get help from CES to from the CEA, the consumer, the people who run CES to because they had helped me with the CT. They were the CEA, the CTA. They had actually helped me get the stats for this article.
Okay.
It was about all the old technologies that people are still using and how many are still sold. So I found out that 10,000 pagers a year were still sold in the U.S.
Wow.
And
you had the number of people who were still on AOL.
Yes, and people still had dial-up internet. People still using payphones, all that stuff. But it's really hard to track the information down.
Yeah.
So CTA is supposed to track that kind of stuff.
I actually do know one person who's still using AOL and is still paying for it.
On dial-up?
No, not the dial-up, but the email service.
Okay.
They're still paying for it, and I'm like, why are you paying for internet now? Or not internet? Why are you paying for email now? There are dozens you can use that you don't have to pay a single penny for. But I'm not gonna name that person.
It always amazes me when you dig back into old stuff that's still around and in use, how many people are still using Windows NT or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's still a few somewhere.
I know.
Every
time I see those stats, I'm like, yikes.
Yeah, it's scary, right? And those stats usually come from people who are online too, because that's how they're getting the number. how many people are still using like Internet Explorer browser instead of Edge
or Chrome or one of the hundreds of,
So it always amazes me to think because I've lived through it,
Right.
So some of that stuff doesn't seem quite as old to me as it does, and it will to my son, and as it does to say Alante.
Yeah.
Like I remember when the iMac came out, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. You can see inside of it and everything.
I have got somewhere around here. I've got an article that was written about it.
Yeah. So it's just interesting to me to think back, to think back to things that I used. So as long as we're talking about old stuff,
yes.
What's the first computer that you owned that you used in your house?
I remember mine.
In the house was a Dell 486. Couldn't tell you what the model number was, but it was a 486 Dell because that's what the credit union that my dad worked at used.
Oh, wow. How about you, Alante? What was the first one you had?
You know what? Now that I think about it, I can't think of the model.
It's okay.
Which sucks. But it was an Acer laptop, very tiny, 13-inch.
So Windows?
Yeah.
Obviously?
It was XP.
Wow, XP.
Yeah. No, that's a lie. It was Vista.
Windows.
It was Vista.
Vista.
Yeah, it was Vista.
Chat room says Commodore 64.
Commodore 64. I wanted a Commodore 64. My parents wouldn't get me one. They got me a TI-99 4A.
Okay.
Nice.
Which is famous for having been the computer that Bill Cosby advertised.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it was, and we used to write programs and record them onto a cassette recorder.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like floppy disks, we couldn't afford the floppy disk part was too expensive. It was like $500 for the floppy disk drive. So just the drive. So you tap one of those Radio Shack cassette recorders.
Yep.
And plug that in, and then it would record your program. I used to buy this magazine called Compute Magazine. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh yeah.
They'd have programs, like basic programs, typed on the papers, and you'd sit there, and it could be like easily 10 pages, and you'd have to type them in and don't make any mistakes. Yep. And then you could save it to the cassette tape, which would take like 20 minutes to save, and it would make noises like a fax machine while saving.
Uh-huh.
Boing,
Wow.
boing, boing, and you'd save that.
Wow.
And my when I was like 9, that was like the coolest thing, because my parents wouldn't get me the Commodore 64 or the Apple II. Then when I got a little older, I got a leading edge Model D, which was an 8088 PC, which had DOS on it.
Yep.
Very nice.
And it had an amber screen, and you couldn't use too many of the graphical programs on it, but you could use Flight Simulator for some reason.
That is interesting.
Okie dokie.
Like it was something like it had this what was called a Hercules graphics card, so only certain programs supported it. It was weird. So yes, that's how old computers were. And when I was in college, a friend of mine who's still a good buddy of mine, my friend Ethan, taught me how to build PCs, and then I built a PC for college. And I remember he taught me about modems, and I got a modem, and I was dialing up to like a bulletin board system, not the internet, to BBSs, and you dial up to people's house and stuff like that, and you dial up and you try to download a GIF because they didn't have JPEG. Mm-hmm. You try to download a GIF of something, like a picture, and you'd wait while it would take like half an hour to download, and it would just be drawing.
Yeah, you just walk to another room.
I used to have a friend in college who liked to download, let's just say, mature photos.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And he would go and dial it to the BBS, and he'd be downloading it, and he'd be watching it draw, and he'd be like, "Oh, not pretty enough. I'm hanging up." I spent 10 minutes on this GIF, but I've seen her face. And,
Oh my god.
That's incredible.
Something like that.
That is incredible.
There are 2 jokes about that on the IT Crowd from the BBC.
Yeah. Oh, I love that show.
Me too.
So yeah, I can absolutely remember using all this old technology. So it still gets me when you see people still using stuff that's old. Like, come on, haven't we been there? And then also when you see people who don't appreciate that some of the things that we do today, we sort of did back then in another format or
Yes.
another way. Like I feel that way about instant message, like about all the different instant messaging software. Like I feel about like WhatsApp. I don't and Snapchat. I'm an old man. I don't get it because when I started working at About.com in 1998, we had ICQ, which was an instant messaging program, and it did the same thing.
Yes. How about the fact that Slack is basically that bulletin board system we were just talking about that dates back into the 60s?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, because there's really nothing new under the sun. It's not really nothing new under the sun. The big selling point of a lot of these things is that your parents don't use them.
Yeah.
Where the cool kids are hanging out, or that they have emojis. That seems to be a selling point that Apple has now. We've added these new emojis.
Yep.
Everything has emojis now, though. Like every little app that you have, even the smallest little app, has some kind of emoji attached to it now.
And we're constantly. Do you remember when the Unicode standard was updated like every decade or so, and now we can't seem to go 6 months without updating the Unicode standard?
Yeah, it's amazing how the characters have changed and things have changed.
Unicode 11 is in draft right now. What?
Well, you gotta update.
You gotta add a face to the emoji collection that looks like Stephen Colbert, apparently.
Yes. You gotta. I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but listen. I mean, now the level of literacy for people with technology is fantastic. Like it was even 10 years ago, but the amount that you see the average person, or even like an older person who wasn't born with, who didn't grow up with it, knowing about technology is really significant. So, you no longer have to teach people computer literacy, really. I mean, I remember in around 2000, I had a volunteer job teaching middle-aged and older people how to use the internet. You couldn't have a class like that now because everybody knows it.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, we had to cut our mics off for a second. Yeah, that it's fascinating to see just how ingrained it is. Like the TV commercials for Alexa to turn on your oven and let you know when the thing is done. It's and that's not targeted necessarily at you and I. That's kind of targeted at my mom.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So it's gotten to the point that it's really easy to use things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, you still end up giving tech support to people. Do you guys find yourself doing that with your families a lot?
Yep.
Indeed.
I did it at work. I did it at home. I did it everywhere.
Well, to be fair, that was your job.
It was.
It's not like people were just coming up to you, hey, I know you know about computers. Can you help me with this?
They kind of did.
It was happening because that's what you did for a living.
Yeah, that's true.
I know.
It never bothers me though.
No, it's fun.
It never bothers me. Like if I'm an expert in something, I might as well help people because I would hope they would help me.
Sure.
So
the only time I ever disliked it was when the person that's asking you for help is talking to you like they know more. But yet they're asking you for help.
Oh, yeah. You mean working at Radio Shack?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my my mother sometimes, I think now she's learned a little better, but she'd always believe that the person in the store knows better.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So like she'd be like, well, I don't know if I should buy, if I really need this wire. I think I should go back to Best to Staples and ask what they think. Like,
yeah.
No, you should ask what I think.
Right.
I think you need the HDMI cable. So, but other than that, I mean, I'm always glad to help people with it. I feel like that's kind of part of what we do, is like to try and help people understand new stuff and teach them to help themselves, like teach them to do something. I mean, I feel like I've been lifted up by all the other people that I've known in person and on the internet, and whose work that I've read and seen that have taught me things.
Yeah.
And it never ends. Like I'm still learning, but I know that there's going to be a resource out there to help me because somebody put the time in.
Right.
Like I have this Raspberry Pi Zero here that I want to play with, and I know that there's something out there to show me exactly what to do with it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's very true.
So that's always there. But I firmly believe you don't talk to people like, you try not to talk to people like they're idiots, and you treat people like they know what they're doing. So I do that now with my 5-year-old son. Like I never try to dumb anything down for him in terms of technology, and he learns all these terms, and he doesn't necessarily know what they mean.
Sure.
But he catches on eventually.
Sure.
Yeah. It's all about association, really.
Like, and people think it's hilarious because they'll meet him and I'll start talking to them about Arduino boards. And they won't like, and they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, Daddy has an Arduino board, and he's going to make me an Arduino race car." And then he's going to, the funniest thing that he's done, I think, is he really loves, and I got to throw a pitch out there for anyone who wants a toy. He really loves his Anki Overdrive race car set.
Mm-hmm.
Have any of you guys used that?
Yes. I've gotten to use it now. And now I get advertisements on Facebook for it all the time, which I blame you for.
It's actually for adults, or for older kids and him and adults. It's a car racing set, but you control it with an app on your phone or tablet. So when we first got it, I could play it on my Android phone, but he couldn't play it on his Amazon tablet because it wasn't in the App Store for Amazon. It is now, but it wasn't then. So I tried to sideload it for him, and I had to explain this to him. I'm like, "Listen, it's not you. Yours has an Amazon store. You can't. I have to try and sideload it. It didn't work. Whatever." Anyway, every time he meets somebody now, he's like, "Does your phone have the Google Store?" And they're like, "Yes." And he's like, "Then you could download Anki Overdrive." But if not, you could sideload it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
that's so great.
That's wonderful.
Oh
my goodness.
So he's 5 years old saying that stuff. So if he can get it, I think anybody can. Or yesterday I quizzed him on the different types of USB, and he knows them all now.
Very nice.
I saw that.
So
Very
because to be honest, he had asked me about it earlier in the day. He knew what they were, but I explained it to him. I was like, "Yes, your tablet uses micro USB, and mine uses USB. My phone uses USB-C, and your controller uses mini USB." So like he was going around telling, he's like, "Yes, and that's a micro USB because I need a micro USB for my tablet." So I thought it was kind of funny. I got him on video talking about it, but it's if he can get it, then anybody can get it.
It's very true.
All right. Well, this has been a really fun show. Obviously, very different than normal.
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun. I'm gonna go ahead and put the closing music on if it'll start playing. Oh, I probably have to turn the volume up. What do you think?
There we go.
It helps.
Volume's good.
All right. Well, like we said, we're on a whole bunch of new places tonight. Periscope has been the most active. If you're on Periscope right now, follow us. We would love to have you follow us. We're going to start doing Periscope a lot more. This is going to be one of the places that we do the show live from now on. Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here. You can go to PLuGHiTZLive.com/join us. And from there, you can see all the ways you can follow along, including YouTube Live, Periscope, Microsoft Mixer, and Livestream.com.
Do it.
This, for those of you who aren't aware of what just happened, was our 10-year anniversary show. We have been doing this crazy show for 10 years now, as of 2 weeks ago, but we've been off for 2 weeks. So we're giving it credit tonight.
Yeah.
Been doing this show for 10 years now. We've had an opportunity to do a lot of really cool stuff, meet a lot of really interesting people, and we got to talk about that. If you have joined us late live, that is okay. If you go to f5live.tv in a couple of hours, the show will be available there, and you can subscribe on the left-hand side on the menu, or if you're on mobile, if you expand the menu in the top left corner, you can go to subscribe and see all of our shows, including F5 Live Refreshing Technology, The Pilch Point with Avram Pilch, where Avram tends to show off interesting stuff that he is working on at Laptop Mag and or Tom's Guide. Our special events feed, which is now complete with all of the Collision coverage. You can get there easily by going to collision.live. And our other series are all there as well. So you can subscribe to all those and see the whole show from tonight on the website in just a few hours. You can also see some of our reviews. For those who know me, you probably will recognize that this watch is not something I usually wear. I'm doing a review on a Dick Tracy watch right now.
Quite literally.
Called the H-Band, because this little thing here on the back is actually a Bluetooth speakerphone. It's just kind of cool, so you can literally talk into it like Dick Tracy, and if you want to use it independently, you can pop the little thing off. It's kind of a cool product. It's
pretty incredible.
Yeah, I haven't made a final determination on it yet, so the review won't go up yet, but we've got some new reviews going up as well. As always, thank you to Avram for taking the time tonight. This was a really fun conversation, buddy.
Agreed.
Oh, always. Especially because Alante was here.
Hey.
I was to say, and a special thank you to Alante for being here for our 10-year anniversary. You did like a year and a half or 2 years of the Prime show with us, at least, right?
Man, did it start off chaotic? but every episode has been a lot of fun.
We've done a lot of fun events together.
Yeah, and hopefully those events will continue.
Indeed,
because I want to go.
I have no intention of making you go anywhere.
Yeah, so I may not always be here, but in special events, you best catch me in those. I will be in those. And Avram, hearts to you, man. It was, I think this is the first time we've got to be on the show all together, and
in a long time.
Yeah, and it was because we did do it in the past. But this was
when we didn't have the screen.
Mm-hmm.
We just had him off to the side before we were adding the video for him in.
Yep, and so it's great to do it in modern times.
Yes. I still loved it when we did it in the hotel room that time.
Oh yeah, that was cool. It was very cool.
Yes.
We have to book a time at CES this year to actually do an in-person one.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
for sure.
That would be great.
Since we're not doing the live show on the floor anymore, it makes our schedule a little easier. So, yeah, for sure.
And shout outs to everyone in the chat room for Periscope. You guys have been very active
for sure.
And I didn't get to really react to all of the comments, but I've seen you guys popping in and out and lots of hearts going on. So thank you.
Yes, thanks for all the hearts. A lot of them.
Yeah. Especially at fun times.
Yes, there have been a couple of times where we've said things that y'all have apparently very much appreciated, which is great because we did too.
Yes. So thank you to you guys for being active.
For sure. So definitely follow us here on Periscope. You will see a lot more of us. All of our shows going forward will be here on Periscope, at least for the foreseeable future. because it has been a whole lot more active than Facebook Live ever was. So we will be here as well. Plus, of course, Microsoft Mixer live stream and YouTube Live, although the YouTube Live chat room has not been cooperating. So if you want to talk to us, any of those other platforms are the way to go. But I think, on that note, on behalf of the staff that is not here and the staff that is no longer with the show, I'm Scott.
I'm Alante.
I'm Abram.
And we will see you guys back next week with a normal, newsy type show. Ciao.
Peace.